And thanks for joining us. We're continuing to cover the two biggest stories in this country, the pandemic and a mass murder. We begin in Nova Scotia. The RCMP there have given more information about their response to the worst mass killing in Canadian history. At least 22 people were murdered. We know that for almost 14 hours starting late Saturday night, a gunman disguised as an RCMP officer was roaming a remote part of rural Nova Scotia, killing people he knew and shooting others apparently at random. The RCMP now say when they arrived on the scene, they found victims, but the gunman was on the loose. They began to search. Yet the only alert to the public that night was a tweet about a firearms complaint. No emergency alert was ever issued, something many say could have saved lives. By morning, the RCMP began tweeting again.
At 8:02 a.m. on Sunday, the RCMP began providing real-time information on its Nova Scotia RCMP Twitter account. Twitter allowed our information to be shared, followed, and broadcast by local, provincial, and national news outlets. At 10:15 a.m., Nova Scotia Provincial Emergency Management officials contacted the RCMP to offer the use of the public emergency alerting system. We were in the process of preparing an alert when the gunman was shot and killed by the RCMP.
The RCMP described the situation that night and into the morning as fluid and dynamic. They say they know the public and the loved ones of victims have plenty of questions. Ross Lord has our top story tonight.
RCMP investigators are still combing through scattered devastation at 16 crime scenes, with the military providing tents and other support. Little has been said officially about the victims at this burned-out home, but the location on a remote road in Wentworth, Nova Scotia, suggests it was a targeted attack. The Mounties are short on answers to this and other questions about the rampage.
We have those same questions, and we'll be seeking answers.
There are new clues about the chaotic effort to stop him. Investigators said today they spent the overnight hours between Saturday and Sunday focused on a specific area. This fire hall has bullet holes from gunfire Sunday morning. The hall was being prepared as a shelter for residents moved to safety from Portapique. Witnesses say RCMP officers were there, but the Serious Incident Response Team, which is investigating, says the gunman was not, raising questions about who officers were firing at. Investigators say the suspect did not have a firearms license, and they have not yet said what type of guns or other weapons were used. Some victims' families and friends say if the Mounties had initiated an emergency alert instead of using Twitter messages, fewer lives would be lost.
Not everyone has Twitter or even Facebook or even internet, but we all have a television or a telephone.
Some people did receive an alert. The U.S. consulate says it used the RCMP's Twitter information to send email alerts to American citizens in Nova Scotia. Premier Stephen McNeil says his emergency officials reached out to the Mounties.
We would not go from what's happening by Twitter. We would need the lead agency to actually craft the message so that we could put that out, and no message was received, even though EMO had reached out a number of times throughout the morning to the RCMP.
Troubling new questions.
Were there mistakes made by incident commander or someone else, or was it a matter of we need to change procedure on how we respond to these types of calls when we have a gun call, maybe in rural areas?
RCMP management says they were in the process of preparing an alert when the gunman was killed. That was 13 hours after the Mounties discovered the first victims and identified their suspect.
So a lot of the delay was based on communications between the EMO and the various officers, and then a discussion about what the message would be, how it would be constructed and what it would say.
The gunman had vehicles restored in the garage behind his denture clinic. Scott Blakeney spruced up the shooter's motorbikes 5 years ago. He took this picture in the garage, which has the same background as the notorious image RCMP released of the mock-up police car used during the rampage.
I would say the vehicle was parked exactly where those bikes were parked the time I was detailing them. So when I looked at it, I was like, that's him.
Police have removed the clinic's storefront, 2 sets of gigantic teeth. Small consolation. The Mounties do say they're very close to releasing a detailed timeline of the shooter's movements, although they're still piecing together some gaps, including revealing how many officers were at these various scenes as they tried to track down the killer. Donna?
All right, Ross Lord in Halifax, thanks.